There is a place on our planet where the water is a brilliant turquoise and the sun beats down on the golden desert sand. It is a place that looks like a paradise, a postcard sent from a perfect vacation. But beneath the beautiful surface lies something else, a place with a much darker name. They call it the Diver's Cemetery, a vertical grave in the sea that has claimed hundreds of lives. This is the story of the Blue Hole in Dahab, Egypt. It is a story about a natural wonder that became a natural-born killer. We will explore why this single spot on Earth is considered the most dangerous dive site in the world, and we will try to understand why people continue to flock to it, knowing they might never return. Before we descend into the darkness, we must first understand the place itself. The Blue Hole sits on the coast of the Sinai Peninsula, a harsh and beautiful landscape of rock and sand. For centuries, this land has been home to the Bedouin people, nomads of the desert, who have a deep spiritual connection to the land and the sea. They have their own stories about the hole, tales of curses and spirits that live in the deep. Some say a young girl drowned herself there to escape an arranged marriage, and her ghost now haunts the water, luring men to their deaths. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the legend adds another layer of dread to an already infamous place. The Bedouin knew the hole was different, a place to be respected and feared. They understood that the deep water held a power that was not meant for humankind. Their ancient wisdom was passed down through generations, a warning whispered on the desert wind. But as the modern world arrived, these warnings were often ignored, dismissed as simple folklore. In the late 20th century, the nearby town of Dahab transformed. It went from a small Bedouin fishing village to a global hub for divers, a laid-back place for backpackers and thrill-seekers. They came for the incredible coral reefs of the Red Sea, some of the most vibrant and full of life on the entire planet. And they came for the challenge, the ultimate test of a diver's skill and nerve, the Blue Hole. The town itself has a relaxed, almost bohemian vibe, which can create a false sense of security. It feels like a place where nothing bad could ever happen, a permanent vacation from the dangers of the world. So what exactly is a blue hole? It is not just a deep patch of water, it is a geological marvel with a violent past. Imagine the world during the last ice age, thousands and thousands of years ago. So much of the world's water was locked up in massive glaciers that the sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than they are today. What is now the seafloor was once dry land, exposed to the air and the rain. This land, in places like Egypt and the Caribbean, was made of soft limestone, a type of rock that dissolves easily in water. Over thousands of years, rainwater, which is slightly acidic, seeped into the ground, carving out massive underground caves and caverns. It was a slow, patient process, nature's own form of architecture happening deep beneath the surface. Then the Ice Age ended, the planet warmed and the glaciers melted. All that water flowed back into the oceans, and the sea levels began to rise dramatically around the globe. The ocean flooded these ancient, dry caves, filling them with salt water. For some of the largest caverns, the weight of all that water above them became too much for the ceiling of rock to support. The roofs of these caverns collapsed in a catastrophic event, creating enormous, perfectly round, vertical shafts leading straight down into the earth. This is what a blue hole is. A flooded sinkhole, a vertical cave that is a scar from a more ancient time. The name comes from the stunning visual it creates from above or from the surface of the water. The water around the edge of the hole is usually very shallow, sitting on a carbonate rock platform, which gives it a light, brilliant turquoise color. But the hole itself plunges into darkness, and the sheer depth absorbs almost all the sunlight. This makes the water in the center a deep, dark, almost black color, a stark contrast to the shallows around it. It looks like a pupil in the middle of a bright blue eye, staring up from the bottom of the sea. It is an image that is both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Inside these holes, the environment is often very strange. Because the opening at the top is narrow compared to the depth, the water circulation is extremely poor. As you go deeper, the water becomes stagnant, cut off from the oxygen-rich waters of the open ocean. At the very bottom of many blue holes, the water is completely anoxic, meaning it has zero oxygen. This means that most sea life cannot survive there. The bottom of a blue hole is often a barren, dead zone, a silent world of mud and rock where nothing grows and nothing lives. There are many blue holes around the world, each with its own unique character. The Great Blue Hole in Belize is perhaps the most famous, a massive, almost perfectly circular hole that is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was made legendary by the famous explorer Jacques Cousteau, who took his ship, the Calypso, to explore its depths in the 1970s. He found giant stalactites and stalagmites deep inside, rock formations that can only form in a dry cave, which was the final proof of how these holes were created. Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas is another famous example, and until recently, it was known as the deepest saltwater blue hole in the world. It plunges to a terrifying depth of over 200 meters, or 663 feet. It is a global mecca for the sport of freediving, where athletes attempt to dive to incredible depths on a single breath of air. It is a place of extreme sport and extreme risk, but its dangers are different from the ones that lurk in Egypt. Neither of these world-famous holes has the same sinister reputation as the one in Dahab. The Blue Hole of Dahab is not the widest, nor is it the deepest, but it is by far the deadliest. To understand why the Dahab Blue Hole is so uniquely fatal, we have to talk in detail about the act of diving itself. It is not as simple as just strapping on a tank and jumping in the water. It is a dance with physics in an environment that is trying to kill you. When you dive, you are entering a completely alien world, one that your body is not designed to survive in. Your number one enemy, the force that governs everything in the deep, is pressure. As you descend, the weight of all the water above you pushes down on your body with incredible force. It is a physical weight that is hard to imagine until you feel it. For every 10 meters you go down, which is about 33 feet, the pressure increases by one entire atmosphere. An atmosphere is the pressure of all the air in the Earth's atmosphere pushing down on you at sea level. So at a depth of just 10 meters, the pressure on your body is already double what you're used to on the surface. At 30 meters, or about 100 feet, the pressure is 4 times greater than normal. This immense crushing pressure does very strange and dangerous things to the air you are breathing from your tank. The air we all breathe every day is made up of about 21% oxygen, about 78% nitrogen, and a few other trace gases. On the surface, under normal pressure, the nitrogen is harmless. It just goes into our lungs and comes right back out. Our bodies do not really use it. But when you are deep underwater, the high pressure forces that nitrogen gas to dissolve into your body's tissues. It gets pushed into your blood, your muscles, and your fat cells, just like sugar dissolving in a cup of coffee. This simple fact is the source of the 2 biggest dangers in all of scuba diving. The first is the one that kills you with confusion while you are down in the deep. This is where the first major danger comes in, a silent killer that creeps into your mind. Divers call it nitrogen narcosis, but a more poetic and terrifying name for it is the rapture of the deep. So what is nitrogen narcosis really in simple terms? Imagine you have had a couple of strong drinks, maybe 2 or 3 martinis on an empty stomach. You start to feel a little lightheaded, maybe a bit giggly and happy. That is what narcosis feels like in its early stages, at a depth of around 30 meters or 100 feet. Your thinking slows down just a little bit, and your coordination is not quite as sharp as it was on the surface. For an experienced diver who is prepared for it, this feeling is usually manageable and not too dangerous. But the problem is that as you go deeper, the drunken feeling gets stronger and stronger, and it happens very quickly. It is not like drinking on land where you can stop after 2 drinks, because here, every foot you descend is like taking another sip. When a diver reaches a depth of 50 or 60 meters, the narcosis is no longer a gentle buzz. It becomes a powerful, overwhelming intoxication that completely destroys your ability to think clearly. Your judgment is the first thing to go. You might look at your depth gauge and see that you are dangerously deep, but the narcosis convinces you that it is not a big deal, that you are fine. It can cause extreme euphoria, a feeling of absolute bliss and invincibility. A diver in this state might feel like they are a superhero, a king of the deep, and that nothing can harm them. But it can also go the other way. Some divers experience intense anxiety, paranoia, and terror, seeing monsters in the shadows or feeling like the walls are closing in on them. Whether it is euphoria or terror, the result is the same: complete loss of rational thought. Divers in the grip of severe narcosis have been known to do things that are suicidal. There are documented cases of divers taking the regulator, the device that gives them air right out of their mouths. They do this because their confused brain tells them they can breathe the water just fine. Others have been known to try and share their air with a fish, or to chase a creature into a dark cave without thinking about how to get back out. They lose all track of how much air they have left in their tank until it is too late. They are profoundly drunk in the most hostile environment on the planet. And in this environment, a single bad decision, a moment of confusion, is a death sentence. This nitrogen narcosis is the silent, seducing killer of the blue hole. It creeps up on you without warning. It makes you feel good while it is leading you to your doom. Now let's talk about the other big killer, a danger that is just as deadly, but attacks you in a different way. This one gets you when you try to come back up to the safety of the surface. This danger is called decompression sickness, but it is more famously known as the bends. To understand the bends, you have to remember that dissolved nitrogen in your body. Think of a bottle of soda, like a Coke or a Pepsi. When the cap is screwed on tight, the bottle is under pressure, and you cannot see the carbon dioxide gas because it is fully dissolved in the liquid. But what happens when you twist that cap off? You release the pressure, and instantly all that dissolved gas comes rushing out of the liquid, forming thousands of tiny bubbles. Your body, when you are at depth, is exactly like that bottle of soda with the cap on. Your blood and tissues are saturated with dissolved nitrogen gas, held in place by the immense pressure of the water. If you ascend to the surface too quickly, you are doing the same thing as twisting the cap off that soda bottle. The pressure on your body is released, and all that nitrogen that was safely dissolved in your tissues suddenly wants to turn back into a gas. It will literally start to form bubbles inside your blood vessels, your joints and your organs. These bubbles are the enemy, and they can wreak havoc on your body. If the bubbles form in your joints, like your elbows or knees, it can cause excruciating pain, which is why the old-time divers called it the bends, because it made them double over in agony. But joint pain is the least of your worries. If these nitrogen bubbles form in your spinal cord, they can cause permanent paralysis. If they travel to your brain, they can cause a stroke, leading to brain damage or instant death. If they clog the small blood vessels in your lungs, it can cause you to choke to death. Decompression sickness is an agonizing and horrific way to die, as your own body turns against you from the inside out. To avoid this terrifying fate, divers have to ascend very, very slowly. They must make a series of planned stops on their way up, which are called decompression stops. They have to pause at specific depths for specific amounts of time. This gives the dissolved nitrogen in their bodies a chance to safely and slowly come out of their tissues and be expelled through their lungs, without forming those dangerous bubbles. The deeper you go and the longer you stay down, the more nitrogen your body absorbs. This means you will have to make more decompression stops, and those stops will need to be much longer. A very deep technical dive might require hours and hours of decompression stops just to get back to the surface safely. The diver might spend 15 minutes at the bottom, but then spend 3 hours slowly coming back up. So this is the deadly equation of deep diving. Nitrogen narcosis is pulling you down, making you drunk and confused, tempting you to go deeper. And decompression sickness is waiting for you on the way up, ready to kill you if you try to escape the deep too quickly. Every deep diver has to walk this impossibly fine line between the two killers. Now, with this understanding of the physics and the dangers, let's apply this knowledge to the specific, deadly geography of the Dahab Blue Hole. The hole itself is located right off the shore, making it deceptively easy to get to. You can be standing on the rocky beach 1 minute, and just a few fin kicks later, you are floating directly over a dark, vertical shaft that plunges down over 100 meters into the earth. This easy access gives a false illusion of safety and simplicity. The main dive for most recreational tourists is to swim around the rim of the hole at a safe, shallow depth, looking at the beautiful coral and fish. But the Blue Hole has a secret, a fatal temptation that has lured countless people to their deaths. At a depth of around 56 meters, or 184 feet, there is a massive, beautiful archway in the side of the limestone wall. This geological feature is known in the diving world simply as the Arch. The Arch is a natural tunnel, about 26 meters or 85 feet long, that cuts through the rock. It connects the inside of the Blue Hole to the open water of the Red Sea on the other side. To successfully swim through the arch is considered the ultimate blue hole challenge. It is seen as a badge of honor, a legendary feat for the most skilled and brave technical divers. But here is the critical problem. 56 meters is far too deep for a normal recreational diver using standard compressed air. It is deep into the red zone of severe nitrogen narcosis. At that depth, your brain is not working properly, and your ability to make safe decisions is gone. To dive the arch safely, you absolutely need specialized technical diving training, which takes years to master. You also need a lot of specialized and expensive equipment, including multiple tanks of gas. Most importantly, you need to be breathing a special gas mixture, not just regular air. Technical divers who plan to go that deep breathe something called trimix. In trimix, some of the dangerous intoxicating nitrogen in the air is replaced with helium. Helium is a gas that does not cause narcosis, which allows technical divers to keep a clear and rational head even at extreme depths. But many of the divers who come to the blue hole are not technical divers with all this special training and gear. They are regular recreational divers who hear the stories and see the pictures of the arch. They see it as a beautiful, alluring goal, and their ego gets in the way of their common sense. They tragically underestimate the true power of nitrogen narcosis, thinking that it will not affect them, that they will be the exception to the rule. This is the deadly and elegant trap of the blue hole. A recreational diver decides to go down, maybe telling themselves they will just take a quick look at the entrance to the arch. They descend down the wall of the hole. As they pass 40 meters, then 50 meters, the narcosis is hitting them hard, even if they do not fully realize it. Their judgment is already clouded, their perception of risk is skewed. They arrive at the entrance to the arch at 56 meters, and it looks beautiful. It appears as an ethereal, glowing blue gateway, a tunnel of light leading out to the open sea. It does not look that long, and it does not look that dangerous to their intoxicated mind. They think to themselves, I can do this. I will just quickly swim through it, and then go right back up to the surface. So they make the fatal decision to enter the tunnel. Inside the arch, it is much darker than it looked from the outside, and the narcosis gets even worse with every passing second. The diver might become completely disoriented, unsure of which way is up or down, which way leads to safety. The floor of the arch tunnel is not flat, it actually slopes downwards. So even as the confused diver thinks they are swimming straight across, they are actually descending even deeper. They drift down to 70 meters, then 80 meters, without even knowing it. At this depth, they are so profoundly drunk on nitrogen that they have no real understanding of their situation. Their breathing rate is incredibly high because of the stress and the deep water, so they are burning through the air in their tank at an alarming speed. By the time their brain registers that something is terribly wrong, it is already far too late. They are dangerously deep, hopelessly lost, and their tank is either empty or about to be. Panic sets in, but it is a confused, ineffective panic. They sink to the bottom of the hole, becoming another tragic victim of the arch. This single geological feature is the reason the blue hole is called the diver's cemetery. It is a perfect predator, a beautiful lure that leads directly to a deadly and inescapable trap. Now let's talk about the man who has seen the tragic consequences of this trap more than anyone else on Earth. His name is Tariq Omar, a name that is legendary in the world of diving for the most somber of reasons. Tariq is a local technical diving instructor in Dahab, one of the most experienced and respected in the region. But he has another unofficial title, a grim nickname that he did not ask for and does not like. They call him the Bone Collector. For over 2 decades, starting in the late 1990s, Tariq has been the person who volunteers for the grim and dangerous task of recovering the bodies of the divers who do not come back from the deep. He has gone down into the darkness of the hole time and time again to bring the lost divers back to the surface. He does this to provide some form of closure to the grieving families who have traveled from all over the world after hearing their loved one is missing. He has recovered so many bodies from the bottom of the blue hole that he has lost count of the exact number. He has said in interviews that he only remembers the names of the very first 2 divers he ever recovered. They were a pair of Irish friends named Conor O'Regan and Martin Gara. They were both experienced dive instructors who died together back in 1997 after they became separated from their group, went too deep, and succumbed to narcosis. The work that Tarek does is incredibly dangerous and psychologically taxing. Recovering a body from such extreme depths is a technical challenge of the highest order. He has to face the same immense pressures and the same risks of narcosis and decompression sickness that killed the divers in the first place. All of this while he is trying to manage a heavy body bag in the deep, dark and cold water, a task that is physically and emotionally draining. He says the bottom of the blue hole is a haunting, surreal landscape. It is littered with the personal equipment of the lost divers. He has seen fins, masks, flashlights and dive computers lying half buried in the sand and rocks. Each item is a grim reminder of a life cut short and of the many who were never found and never recovered. The sheer depth and the darkness of the hole make finding bodies extremely difficult. Sometimes a body is not found until long after the diver has disappeared, if at all. And in some cases, when a body is located, it is recommended not to recover it because of the state of decomposition. Those divers are left where they lie, becoming a permanent and tragic part of the diver's cemetery. The story of Tarek Omar is a somber and necessary counterpoint to the thrill-seeking and arrogance that draws so many to this place. He is the one who has to face the brutal reality of what happens when the adventure goes horribly wrong. Perhaps the most famous, chilling and influential story to ever come out of the Blue Hole is the tragedy of Yuri Lipsky. His story is so uniquely powerful and horrifying because he managed to film his own final moments. Yuri Lipsky was a 22-year-old Russian-Israeli man who was working as a scuba diving instructor. In April of the year 2000, he traveled to Dahab with the dream of diving the legendary Blue Hole. His father, who was worried about the dangers, had made him promise not to do anything stupid or reckless. Yuri arrived in Dahab alone, and following standard safety protocols, he tried to find a buddy to dive with him. He eventually found a local dive master who agreed to take him into the hole. Yuri brought with him a video camera, which was protected by an underwater housing, so he could capture the beauty of the dive. Instead of capturing the beauty, he captured a terrifying and unfiltered record of his own death. The footage from his camera was later recovered and has since been posted online, where it has been seen by millions of people, serving as the most stark and effective warning in diving history. We are now going to walk through what Yuri's camera saw on that fateful day. It is a journey from light into absolute darkness. The video begins in the shallow water near the surface. The scene is idyllic. The water is bright blue and crystal clear. Sunlight streams down from above and colorful fish swim by the coral. Other divers are visible in the background, and everything looks normal, beautiful and safe. Yuri fiddles with his camera for a moment. Then he gives the signal that he is ready, and he begins his descent. He follows another diver, who is presumably his guide, down along the rocky wall of the hole. As he goes deeper, you can watch the light from the surface begin to fade with alarming speed. The vibrant turquoise blue of the shallows gives way to a darker, more serious shade of deep indigo. The only sound is the constant, rhythmic, mechanical noise of his own breathing through his regulator, a sound that becomes more and more ominous as he descends into the gloom. He continues to go down, past 30 meters, then past 40 meters, far past the depth where recreational divers are supposed to stop. He is diving on regular compressed air, not the special trimix gas needed for deep dives, which means the nitrogen narcosis would have been setting in, insidiously clouding his mind. He glances down at his dive computer on his wrist. The numbers on the small screen are hard to make out in the video, but careful analysis of the footage has shown that he is already well past 50 meters, rapidly approaching the depth of the arch. The water around him gets darker and darker with every passing second. Soon there is no more blue light from the surface. There is only a black, inky, and terrifying void below him, with the ghostly shape of the hole's wall to his side. He keeps going down, past 60 meters, then 70, then 80 meters. Then, at this extreme depth, the nitrogen narcosis would be completely overwhelming. He would be in a state of profound confusion, barely able to comprehend his own situation or the danger he is in. The video then shows him landing hard on a rocky ledge at the bottom of the hole. The camera shakes with the impact. He has reached a final depth of 91 meters, or nearly 300 feet. This is an absolutely insane depth for any diver on compressed air. a depth from which there is almost no chance of survival. It is a miracle that he was even conscious enough to be filming. You can hear the high-pitched electronic alarm from his dive computer beeping frantically, a desperate warning that he is far too deep and needs to ascend immediately. But he seems unable to process the alarm or react to it. The camera pans around wildly for a moment, showing nothing but his own exhaled bubbles rising up into the infinite blackness above him. He seems to be struggling, moving erratically on the bottom. You can hear a loud hissing sound on the video's audio track, which is the sound of him trying to inflate his buoyancy control device, or BCD. The BCD is like an inflatable vest that divers use to control whether they go up or down. He is desperately trying to make himself go up, trying to escape the crushing deep. But it is useless. He is too deep. He is likely overweighted with too much lead, and his mind is too clouded by narcosis to function properly. He thrashes around on the bottom for a few more seconds, in a state of what must have been absolute terror and confusion, and then the camera goes still, pointed upwards at the crushing, empty blackness above. At that moment, his regulator had fallen from his mouth. Yuri Lipsky sank to the bottom of the blue hole and drowned, all while his camera faithfully recorded his final desperate moments. When Yuri did not return from his dive at the scheduled time, the alarm was raised on the shore. Tarek Omar, the bone collector, was called upon to make the recovery dive the next day. He descended into the darkness and found Yuri's body lying face down on the rocky ledge at 91 meters. He also found the camera, still attached to Yuri's wrist. Tarek brought Yuri and his belongings back to the surface. He returned the camera to Yuri's parents, who had flown to Dahab in a state of shock and grief. Tragically, they decided to play the tape, hoping to see the beautiful dive their son had experienced. Instead, they were forced to watch the final horrific moments of their own son's life. Tarek later said in an interview that if he had known the camera was still functional after being so deep, he would have flooded it with water himself. He would have destroyed it to spare Yuri's parents that unimaginable horror. The video captured by Yuri Lipsky is one of the most terrifying and powerful pieces of found footage in existence. It is not a movie, it is a real-time document of a young person being consumed by the deep. It shows with brutal clarity how quickly things can go horribly wrong on a deep dive. It demonstrates how a beautiful adventure can turn into a lonely, terrifying death in a matter of just a few minutes. But Yuri Lipsky is just one name among hundreds. There are so many other stories, so many other lives that have been cut short in the dark water of the blue hole. There was the story of the diver known as Igor, a man who planned a very deep technical dive to 150 meters. He was a very experienced diver with 400 dives logged in his book. He successfully made it down to his target depth, a personal record for him. But during his long ascent back to the surface, something went terribly wrong. At a depth of 130 meters, he began to hyperventilate. The stress and the depth overwhelmed him, and a complete and total panic set in. In that moment of pure terror, he lost all his training and did the one thing a deep diver must never, ever do. He bolted directly for the surface. He shot up from the deep like a rocket, ignoring all of his required life-saving decompression stops. As he ascended, the dissolved gases in his blood began to expand violently inside him. Then there are the countless other stories of those who simply vanish without a trace. Divers who go down into the hole and are never seen again, their bodies lost forever somewhere in the immense, dark and silent void. On the shore of the blue hole, there is a makeshift and somber memorial. It is a collection of simple stone plaques that have been embedded into the rock face by the friends and families of the victims. Each plaque bears the name of a diver who died there, their nationality, and the date they were lost. It is a haunting and powerful sight, a wall of the dead that stands as a permanent warning. Prospective divers often walk past this memorial on their way to enter the water. It is a final, stark reminder of the stakes of the game they are about to play. But bizarrely, this grim reputation for death and the presence of this memorial do not seem to deter people. In fact, for a certain type of person, it seems to be part of the morbid attraction. This leads us to the biggest and most difficult question of all. Why? Why do people continue to dive in a place that is famously known as a cemetery? Why do they willingly and knowingly face such a high and documented risk of death for what is, in the end, just a hobby? The answer is complex and lies deep within the strange wiring of human psychology. For some people, risk is not something to be avoided, it is something to be sought out. They are thrill seekers, adrenaline junkies, edge workers, people who feel most alive when they are closest to the edge of death. For this kind of person, conquering a notoriously dangerous place like the Blue Hole is the ultimate achievement. It is a way to test their skills, their courage, and their luck against one of nature's most formidable and unforgiving challenges. There is an undeniable and powerful seduction to the danger itself. It is the exact same psychological impulse that drives people to try and climb Mount Everest, or to jump out of airplanes, or to race cars at incredible speeds. It is a deep-seated human desire to push boundaries, to go where few have gone before, and to come back with a story to tell. The sheer beauty of the place is also a powerful and deceptive lure. The idea of swimming through that glowing, ethereal blue archway is a powerful image, a goal that can become so intoxicating that it overshadows any logical assessment of the risk involved. Then there is the powerful and often destructive element of human ego. In the global diving community, there can sometimes be a culture of bravado and one-upmanship. Divers might feel an unspoken pressure to prove themselves, to show their peers that they are not afraid, that they are skilled enough to handle the ultimate challenge. They hear stories of other divers who have dived the arch and survived, and they foolishly think that they can too. This combination of psychological factors, the thrill-seeking, the beauty, and the ego, creates a perfect storm of motivation. It is a storm that draws people in, whispers to their deepest desires, and numbs their fundamental sense of self-preservation. It is also important to state that the site itself is not inherently evil. It is a natural formation, and it is possible to dive the Blue Hole in a completely safe manner. Thousands and thousands of divers do it every single year without any incident at all. They do this by sticking to safe, recreational depth limits, by not attempting to dive the arch without the years of technical training and specialized equipment required, and by always maintaining a deep respect for the power of the deep. The problem is not the hole itself, but human error, human arrogance, and a fundamental lack of respect for the unforgiving laws of physics. The Blue Hole does not hunt people, it simply presents a challenge, and it punishes those who are unprepared with the ultimate penalty. It is up to each individual diver to make an honest assessment of their own skills, their training, and their mindset. The tragedies occur when people lie to themselves, when they let their ego write a check that their body and their skills cannot cash. In recent years, there have been some concerted efforts to improve safety at the site. The local dive centers in Dahab have tried their best to educate visiting divers about the specific and unique dangers of the arch. There is now a large sign near the entry point to the water, a sign that clearly warns divers of the risks and advises against attempting to dive the arch on recreational equipment. But ultimately, you cannot regulate away human ambition and the primal desire for a thrill. As long as the arch is there, a beautiful and silent challenge in the deep, there will be divers who will try to conquer it. And inevitably, tragically, some of them will fail. The legacy of the Dahab Blue Hole is therefore a dual one, a legacy of light and of shadow. It is a place of breathtaking natural beauty and an incredible, vibrant underwater ecosystem. It is a gateway to the stunning world of the Red Sea, a place of life and brilliant color. But it is also a place of immense sorrow, a place of loss, and a place of profound tragedy. It is a monument to the razor-thin line that separates bravery from foolishness, the line between high adventure and a lonely death. It is a place that serves as a powerful reminder of our own human fragility in the face of nature's indifferent power. The stories of Yuri Lipsky, of Tariq Omar, and of the countless unnamed others are now woven into the very fabric of the place. They are as much a part of the Blue Hole as the ancient rock and the dark water. The somber memorial on the shore continues to grow, a silent and expanding testament to the hole's deadly and ongoing allure. Each new plaque is another story of a dream that turned into a permanent nightmare. So when we look at a photograph of the Dahab Blue Hole, we should try to see more than just a pretty picture for a travel magazine. We should see the two sides of its complex and terrifying personality. We should see the bright, sunlit, and inviting paradise that exists on the surface. And we should also see the cold, dark, and unforgiving cemetery that lies just a few meters beneath. It is a place that asks a silent and profound question of all who visit its shore. How far are you willing to go for a thrill, and what price are you truly willing to pay? For hundreds of divers, the answer was everything. They paid for their ambition with their lives, and their stories now serve as a permanent chilling warning that echoes up from the deep. The sound of the bubbles, the slow fading of the light, the creeping confusion of narcosis. This is the final, lonely experience for too many who challenge the whole. The blue hole keeps its secrets well, and it keeps its dead even better. And it continues to wait, beautiful and silent and patient, for the next person who dares to underestimate its terrible power. It is a stark and final reminder that some of the most beautiful places on our earth are also the most deadly, and that the line between heaven and hell can sometimes be just a few meters of dark, cold water. We have explored the science, the stories, and the psychology behind this infamous dive site. From the ancient formation of the hole in the last ice age to the tragic and unforgettable footage captured by Yuri Lipsky's own camera, we have seen how a deadly combination of pressure, nitrogen gas, and human ambition creates a fatal cocktail. It is a place where a single mistake is almost always the last one you will ever make. The work of Tarek Omar, the man they call the Bone Collector, shows us the heavy human burden of the aftermath, the unbearable grief of the families, and the grim reality of what it takes to bring the lost home from their watery graves. The Blue Hole is more than just a dive site. It is a powerful and enduring symbol. It represents the complex relationship between humanity and the natural world, our deep desire to explore it, and the terrible dangers that await when we push too far beyond our limits. The whispers of the old Bedouin legends seem to hang heavy in the hot desert air there. A cursed place, a place of sorrow, a place to be avoided. And as you stand on the shore today, looking at that perfect dark blue circle in the turquoise water, you can almost feel it. You can sense a feeling of immense power, of a presence that is ancient, indifferent, and lethally patient. The story of the Blue Hole is not over. It is a story that is still being written. As long as divers from around the world seek out adventure and challenge, its legend will continue to grow, and its list of victims will, tragically, most likely grow with it. Thank you for joining us on this descent into the diver's cemetery. It is a story that should serve as a reminder to always respect the power of the deep and the lure of the unknown.